There we go. Election New Brunswick.
Charles,
Comment ça va?
ça marche bien, merci.
So election New Brunswick is better having that than the style in China or Russia. Don't answer that if you don't want to. But anyway, it's a different system, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So why you were at Paul Harpelle? What's your job anyway?
Director of Communications and Community Outreach.
Okay. CBC is a little bit slow. I've been talking about this for about 3-4 months. You could, Don Darling, you don't have no opinions, Mayor of St. John. My opinion, fantastic guy. I interviewed him side by side and outspoken, ADHD, just like moi. See, I made this more about moi. I'm going to shut up short and let you talk. Basically, it gives you time to think. Where am I going with this? Anyway, so Don Darling, if he re-offers, he'll have my support. Nice guy. But when you're Mayor of St. John, you have the Irvings. Irving could go and give you $1 million in your back pocket. And you don't have to disclose where it came from. And I've been talking about this for 3 or 4 months, and CBC this morning is on the news. And you said it could take time for this.
It would take time.
Okay, you explained to me how a law that we have to disclose the money, pass a law, how would it take time to?
Well, right now, there are in fact no policies or regulations that have been approved by any government to say what the rules would look like. What would be the disclosure requirements? Would it be only on money spent, or would it be on contributions received? So if you look at the Political Process Financing Act, it's a very large document.
Yeah, what
sets out
provincial?
rules.
What do you have to do? Provincial.
In provincial, there is a requirement for disclosing donations that are received and receiving them. That's because there are tax benefits. There likely wouldn't be in municipal. And then the district association and/or candidate has to disclose the spending they did on their campaign. And there are limits.
Yeah.
So the government, the previous administration, put inside the Local Governance Act that there would be regulations passed setting rules for campaign financing for municipal elections. The actual regulations were never introduced and approved by cabinet. So you're not even at the starting point of knowing what the rules are. Then it comes down to preparing to produce manuals, training videos, things that would be required to educate candidates on what they are now responsible and required to do.
Isn't this like Al Capone style of politics?
I didn't know Al Capone, so I'm just...
Political answer. I always say you should be a politician.
But the point being that you can't, it's not like a light switch, you turn it on and then you have rules in place. There are a lot of pieces that have to come together that would be required before you could say to a potential candidate in May 2020, which is basically a year away, here are the requirements you must meet now. So it would be a very large undertaking.
But there's no requirement. We want to know who donated to your campaign.
Candidates are free to talk about that on their own volition if they want.
But they don't have to tell the public.
They're not legislated by law.
No, exactly. So isn't that
That's a policy decision.
Politics?
That's a policy decision of government. The government was the government of Mr. Gallant. He is the one that introduced the requirement, but then the government didn't follow through. Has not followed through yet with giving the regulations that would set.
How come?
I think.
Did it die in the order of when they call?
No, it wasn't an order paper. It's just the regulations were not introduced for approval by cabinet. I think obviously you ran into the election came up, and then you've had the obviously the situation where you've had two different governments, and I just think the attention to addressing that issue just went off the table.
Is every other provinces the same way? Did you know that?
I don't know every other province. We are the only province in we are the only province and the only agency that actually handles municipal municipal elections. Mm-hmm. In other provinces, the municipality itself, and I do know that there are disclosure requirements in other provinces, but it's handled internally by, for example, Ontario or British Columbia, and they don't actually. The elections agency there doesn't run the elections, but there are some reporting requirements in some other provinces. But I couldn't give you a breakdown.
It's pretty scary when you have, like I said, one of the richest men in the world, Mr. Irving, in a city, and he could give 10 employees $100,000 each to run for council, and the public don't know who donated to their campaign.
Again, I mean, obviously, I can't speak to that specific.
Am I being too sarcastic here?
I just think it becomes a policy decision, and I think, well, I guess I would make the case that you might have a completely different scenario in a small community like Alma, where if you
everybody knows your name,
and if you put these kind of requirements on the table as part of the process, it could dissuade some people from actually deciding to even run, because now there's a requirement. I might have to get a financial agent, or I'll have to be my own financial agent. So what is good for St. John as an example that you're citing may not be appropriate in Nakawik or Elma.
For Petticoat Junction, it's not the same thing.
Or Petit Rocher or Lac Baker. So
Green Acres.
So it has to be a policy decision of government. Whatever they put in place, then we will be the ones charged with making sure that the candidates of the future are aware of the rules that they have to operate under. But
that's what got me here. Why? Well, you said that you don't know if you have enough time to tell the candidates, okay, you have to disclose who donated to your campaign.
It sounds like a very simplistic way to say that's not exactly how.
That's why we're here.
Yes, but with those kinds of rules, you also have to have rules in place that if you don't file your nomination, if you don't file your disclosure statement, what is the timeline you have to file it? If you don't file it, what is the offense, and is there a fine associated with that? It has happened in the past. If a candidate dies after being elected to office before they file their disclosure statement, is there still a requirement for somebody who's associated with that candidate to? These are all the little nuances that would have to be determined to have an actual set of rules before we can go out and talk to every candidate and educate them.
Shouldn't the election New Brunswick push this?
No.
How come?
Because it's the policymakers that decide, just as they decide what's in the Elections Act, the Political Process Financing Act. We are the administrators, and we will run the election under the rules that exist. It's the policymakers, the people over at the Legislative Assembly. They determine what the rules are.
Why do I get involved in these things?
I think you just have a keen interest in what's the political landscape, and potentially you want to see things on a level playing field.
Level playing field. So we got no time for our idiot mayor. Fredericton, don't answer that. He could, if he rerun, he could. If he decides to re-offer, he could have shiny lights, Fredericton strong, and the developers could give him millions of dollars, and we don't know who gave money to the candidate. We don't know.
Under the current rules, they're not required to disclose contributions received and how much they spent on their campaign.
I think the bottom line here, I just thought about this. I think the bottom line, oh, by the way, thank you very much, but I think the bottom line is you go like this, and then you go. Question mark. Thank you.